and really, I did what I did, not proud of it, and don't encourage anyone to do that, but that's my story. And I had obviously collected a lot of trauma through all of that. And when I came back home, thank God for my mom's and dad's wisdom and their boundaries, and they said to me, you can come home, but you've got to get on with your education, you've got to find a job. We're not looking after your child. We'll support you as best we can. But their boundaries were very regimented, and I'm very thankful for that. And so that's what I did. I went back, I worked on on myself in terms of my studies, in terms of getting a job. And in my 20s, I ended up being quite successful in my career. I was in clothing, and I was traveling the world, making a lot of money. So again, it was a very big contrast from what I was used to. Going from literally homeless to, in my 20s, the next decade, I'm in Paris, I'm in Milan, name the place, I'm there doing business and working really hard. And it was interesting, as I reflect back, it's like I wanted to create this new avatar of myself. Like, look at me now, look at me now, I'm like successful. So you can erase all those bad things I did, I guess was my motive, never a good one. But I was also, I guess the other unhealthy motive in me was I want to provide for this child. So I'd pamper him, I'd spoil him with gifts and bring him different things from all over the world. Around this time, I met Michael, my husband. It will be 25 years, we're married next year, so thank you, God. And he was very different to Mark, and one of the things that really attracted me about him was that he had, he was very conscious of his health, he wasn't a smoker, he just had different, he wasn't, and he came from very different family values, and so he also loved my son Ash, and so we started seeing each other, and then we moved here to Melbourne in 2004, and we got married, in about, as I said, 25 years ago. So, and then we got married, and we moved to Melbourne with my older son Ash, and I was pregnant for Ria, so she got a free ticket to Melbourne. And we moved here, and after having Ria, I had to take a break from work. I had to come, I guess, to terms with the slower pace of life. And around this time, my oldest son Ash was 16. And guess what happens? All those skeletons come back to haunt you. Because of the way I left home, I was petrified that I would wake up to him not being home. And so what did I do? I became a super controlling mom. I would drive him everywhere. I'd go to the school and park and wait outside to make sure he's actually gone in. And this kid is in year 10 at this point. And I was treating him like he was in kindergarten. And I'd keep waking up several times a night and go and check under the sheets to make sure he was physically there and that he hadn't put pillows like I did when I left home. So I was, again, just going totally crazy because, as I said, I had a lot of undealt stuff. A couple of years after Ria was ready to go to her own, to go to childcare, I got a good job here as well. And again, I was seemingly quite successful on the outside. People would look at me and go, wow, you've just come into the country and you've built a house and you've got a good job and, look at you guys. And I'm thinking, well, you don't know what goes on behind closed doors. And life was hard. It was just like, I'm thinking to myself, how am I going to sustain this? How long am I going to control what I can do with this child? How long am I going to control if he's going to leave or if he's going to do the same thing, if I'm going to endure what my parents went through? And then something happened. It was a very small argument that I had with Mike. It was the tip of the iceberg, and I attempted to take my life. So I was in the KC hospital in Melbourne. They rescued me, obviously. But it was I'd come to this point where I thought, it's just not worth it anymore. It's just not worth it. You're so guilty of so much. Like, what's the point of this? And here you are now ruining your son's life. Here you are ruining everyone else's life. All these voices that tormented me day in and day out. And anyway, I come out of hospital, and that weekend, we went to visit with a friend just because my husband was like, I just don't want you to be alone at home. Let's just go. So we went to visit a friend, and her mother happened to be there. And she shared the gospel with me. And when I said she shared the gospel, she was not a gracious, loving, Jesus loves you kind of person. She was like, turn or burn kind of gospel sharer. So, now the pride in me was like, I know this Jesus, go and find someone else. I know all this stuff. But what she shared with me, some seeds were sown. I felt like, okay, maybe I'll give this Jesus another go. And so that night I come back home, I'm thinking, just reflecting on the conversation we had. I look up a church close to home, and I found the Berwick Church of Christ. Now, what I didn't share is that in the meantime, I've still been walking up and going to, my husband's Catholic, so I'm still going to church, I'm doing all the religious stuff, but really on the inside, there's no relationship, there's no intimacy, I'm just doing it to tick another superficial, box on the outside. So this is a bit of a funny story. On the Berwick Church of Christ website, they said they have a prayer meeting on a Tuesday evening. So I'm thinking, that seems a little less daunting than just landing up in a church. Maybe a prayer meeting is a smaller setting. Maybe they'll just pray with me and send me home. What I didn't realize was that was an elders' prayer meeting. So I'm going there, and I sit with 10 elders. I hijacked that elders' meeting. I don't know what they had on their agenda that night. But they were so sweet, and they started asking me questions and sharing what they can do, and I'm, just with all the little Christianese that I knew, I'm praying with them, and I was like, all right, this seems really strange. Maybe I should just start opening up. So I started opening up and sharing with someone that, just 10 days back, I actually attempted to take my life, and that's it. They were no more everyone was seated around me. They put me in this hot chair in the middle, and they were like, we're going to have to deal with you. And so that was the start of a very amazing, transformative journey. I came back to church that Sunday along with my kids, and they had an Alpha card, and they said, you want to know Jesus? Maybe you should try this course. So I did that. I did Alpha, and all of the foundation that God had already laid in my heart when I went to the school, to the Christian school, started to come back. And I was slowly making, I felt a little more positive and a little more positive. And the disillusionment after Alpha, we have a Growing to Maturity course that Ken, our pastor, who's Lexon's brother, he's sort of written the course, and I signed up for that. And in the GTM, or Growing to Maturity course, they have a Freedom Weekend. And the Freedom Weekend is meant for you to come to terms with everything that, you are on the inside. And this is something I haven't actually shared, and I feel the Holy Spirit is prompting me to share it. To know, I didn't want my church, because this is like the new community that knows me, and again I'm thinking, I don't want you guys to actually know who I am on the inside. So I looked up Ken Raymond, and I emailed him directly going, I know there's a Freedom Weekend, but I feel I need to just talk to you directly, because I don't want these other people to know what I've done. And he said, that's exactly what we will be covering at the Freedom Weekend. So you just work with your facilitators, because you can imagine that I run many of these courses. Anyway, the weekend comes. We go to a retreat center in Belgrave. And the first night, the speaker was sharing about her weekend. This is easy. A nice sticky date putting on the house as well, so why not? And the next morning, my spirit starts, everything within me is starting to churn. I go to one of the leaders, Matt, and I actually pulled a fast one. I said to him, Matt, I need to go home. Just call Mike and find out. And I'm calling Mike and I'm like, something's not right, right? I'm trying to prompt him to say something's not right, but he's like, no, babe, everything's okay. Just stay where you are. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'm meant to deal with this. That was at 9 a.m. in the morning. By the time they'd finished praying for me, it was 2 a.m. in the morning, the following morning. So they had a lot that I had a lot to deal with, and they were just kind and gracious. And I was set free from so many things. All the guilt, all the shame that I was carrying. And it was enormous, the kind of healing that I'd experienced. And I then started making, like, again, the discouragement, the dark thoughts, they were all now starting to fade away even more. I was starting to walk with Jesus. So I'm just going to say, who would I have been without Jesus? I think that part of that story says a lot. Well, another funny story is I met this lady. She happened to be my son's close friend's mom, and she's like, are you the same Arti, Royan? I said, yes, I think I'm the same person you're talking about. She goes, you're so nice, you're so caring and so humble. I met Jenny the other day and she said, that Arti, she was so proud. Are you sure you're talking about the same person? So I was like, oh, okay. That means God is really working in my heart. So I continued to take steps towards Jesus. I started serving at church, and, God has started to create purpose in my life. But there was still a lot of things that he had to deal with. 2017, Pastor Ken preached a message at our church about being set apart for God. And like you did, Lex, I wrote in my journal that day, it was the 26th of May, 2017, and I said, I want this life. You've rescued me. I want to be set apart for you, Jesus. I want to be consecrated. I don't know what all this means, but I know that you want me to do this. I wrote that, and I forgot about it. May 2017. August 2017, we planned, it was our 20th anniversary year, so Mike, Ria, and I planned this big holiday to America. We're driving from, I think it was from Las Vegas to Arizona to see the Grand Canyon. My Facebook Messenger keeps going off, and the messages go, hi, Mom, it's your second son, Jason. I've never been angry with you. I've always loved you. And then just the same message kept coming over and over and over again. And then he goes, I'm so sorry, something's wrong with my phone, and therefore it's just the same message keeps coming over and over again. And I'm in the middle of nowhere, literally in the middle of nowhere, and I get this message. Not sure what to do, and I showed it to Mike, and he says, well, what can you do? You're here. But in me, everything in me just wanted to run to India and hold this child and be like, where have you been these last 20-something years? And I called my oldest son, Ash, his brother, and I said, your brother's messaged me, what do I do? Tell me, he said, Mom, you're in the middle of nowhere. Just go and finish your holiday. He's like, pretty straightforward. He's like, well, he's done life without you for over 20 years. Like, a few days isn't going to matter. So, oh my goodness. And so the rest of the holiday, I was just going along. Time, are we okay? We're good? Okay, sorry. Okay, so I came back, and on his birthday, the 10th of October, 2017, we rang him, Mike. My older son, Ash, and we called and we spoke to him. And he just called me Mom in every language there was on the phone. He's just like, Mommy, Mama, Mama, Mama. He just kept it. It was just, Mike and I were on our knees crying, and my oldest son, Ash, was crying. And it was, and Ria didn't even know because we couldn't tell her. She was still quite young, and we had to process quite a bit. And another God story in that is we're asking him, do you go to church? And he's hesitating because I don't know if he thinks, well, I don't know if you guys are going to think I'm a nut if I said I did. So he says, yes, I did. In fact, I got baptized a couple of months back. And I'm thinking, God, only you can do this. Now he's got a long way to go, but that was God's promise of having deposited something in him as well. Anyway, everything in my heart wanted to see this child and wanted to know what, to catch up on the last 21 something years. And so that year in December, Ria and I went to India, and I saw him for the first time in forever. And he looks exactly like me. He's out of the three kids, he's the one that looks the most like me. And something happened when we left. His trauma, his rejection and abandonment started to stir up all the demons in him. And his thought process was along the lines of, this is my mom, and is this the person I've missed out? Now, because he's seeing the transformed version of me, he didn't see the broken, messed up version of me. So he thinks this is the mom he's missed for all those 20 years, not realizing that there's nowhere like that without Jesus. And we went through a very, very difficult period after that because he tried everything to get our attention, because obviously we had to leave him back, and we're here and he's there. And if I'm really honest, during that time I started to, the same person who said, I want to be set apart for you, Jesus, and I want to be consecrated, I started to really operate out of emotion. All of the trauma in me was just, triggered a very dysfunctional emotional response. And for a good over 12 months, I was an absolute mess. It was like all the demons from my past had somehow re-triggered, and I was just really operating from a very emotional place. And something had to happen. I needed to get out. It was just so much. Everything seemed overwhelming. When you're going through that amount of trauma, you just don't want to talk to people. You're just not a good person. Anyway, God has an interesting way of working with us. At the end of 2018, I got a job offer to move to America. And we prayed about it, and my husband also was supportive. And Ria, I asked her what she thought about it, and she said, Mom, take it up. You may not, if you don't take it up, you may regret it. So we went through a process of praying over it for about a month, and we decided, yep, we'll go. So we went to the US thinking, I'm going to, I guess now I think about it, I was probably running away from some of my problems. I probably just needed time to recalibrate and because there was just so much emotional stuff going on. And I hit the wall when I was in the US. I absolutely hit the wall. Because we went there and we realized my husband couldn't work there with the visa that he had. So he was there for a few months, and then he said, I'm going back to Melbourne, because he works here for the police. And he said, he didn't give up his job. He took a sabbatical. So he said, I'll go and work there, and when I get my visa, I'll come back. And so it was just Ria and I in the US alone. But God used that time so powerfully. In one sense, when I look back now, it was that Jacob moment. It was like, come, let's wrestle. Because I had prayed that prayer. I said to God, I don't care if you make me a hunchback after this, but I want to come out, and I want to come out with that same promise I made, that I want to be set apart from you. Because this person that I'm operating as is not that same person. I'm just operating out of trauma. I need you to come, and that whole psalm, deep calls to deep. I'm calling you from the depths of my heart. Come and heal those parts in me that need the healing. So he stripped me of everything, even the Berwick Church of Christ that I always went to when I had a problem, my mentors, my pastors, and it was just a season of me and God. But it wasn't an easy season. There were times, and I was leading a team, I was in a job where it was quite demanding. I recall there was, and Ria was 14, so you can imagine a teenage girl who's 14, who's going through her own trauma. Is it all right if I get a bit transparent here, Ria? It's okay? Okay. Every time something went wrong, she'd look at me and go, "It's your fault we're here." The same girl who gave me the motivational talk about, "Mom, you'll regret it if you don't try it out." Every time something was wrong, she's like, "It's all your fault I don't have my friends. It's all your fault I'm in this miserable place. It is all your fault." And one afternoon, I picked her up from school, and we had a massive, massive showdown. She had some issue, and I had. And she gets off from the car. It's a funny but a very traumatic story. She gets down from the car to go home. She's laughing. And I get off without even turning the car off. We both off the car, and the car's moving back. We live in a brand new estate. The garage door's up. The car's moving behind on its own. It's backing out. It's not a Tesla. It was an old big car. And I'm holding the car like I'm some she-woman or something, and I'm running along. She's rolling and laughing, and she's not being helpful. And she's like, "Mom, you're not going to be able to prevent this car from moving. Just let it move." And so the car's rolling out, and I'm looking at the new house, on the other side of the road, and I'm like, "God, that's it. Like, I think now I'm also going to be bankrupt, because if this car goes into that, into the front porch of that house, that's gone." Lo and behold, the car moves and hits a pole. So thankfully again, God showed up. That's just the level of trauma that I was dealing with. But in that season, which I call the wilderness, I was able to experience God. There was a lot of purging. I had to let go of people. I had to, even with Jason and with my sons, I had to reestablish boundaries. I had to say, "Jesus, you're in control of my kids. You're in control of the mess I've made, but I'm willing to surrender. I'm willing to give you everything." And so I surrendered, totally let go of everything. And then COVID happened, and long story short, we moved back to Melbourne. And 2 years, I had just an intense time with the Lord. And He, one by one, purged, everything away. And there was this complete, deep work that God did. And as I say, with death comes resurrection. So, who would I be without Jesus? Jeremiah 29:11-14. "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." But this is the verse from 12. "Then you will call on me and come and pray to me, and I will listen to you. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. I will be found by you, declares the Lord, and will bring you back from captivity." That was His promise, and there was this deep season where I was seeking Him, wrestling with Him, and He was faithful. He is faithful. And so I had what I call my third conversion experience, a greater understanding of who I would be without Jesus. And I now say I'm His apprentice. I'm committed to being His apprentice, bold with my Master, to live in His kingdom, not seeking what I think He can offer, but to seek after His righteousness. And I want to seek after His likeness. I want to be like my Master. It's not going to be progressive all the time. It's not even going to be linear. It's going to have its ups and downs. But my Master is more committed to this than me as His apprentice. God is the gardener, Jesus is the vine, and I am the branch. All I need to do is to show up, to be with Him. He will teach me, show me, and He will remove those deficiencies that hinder in the development of my apprentice journey. All I need to do is this, and this is what has kept me going. I need to be with Jesus so I can become like Jesus. And out of that, he will teach me to do as he would. Not perform, but be fruitful through him. I will have my moments and make mistakes, but I show up consistently, hands up, and I will wear the overalls that he gives me to wear on a daily basis. His robe of righteousness. All I need to do is to be his apprentice today. I just want to read this from a book that I was reading recently by Henry Nouwen. Jesus' heart is the incarnation of the shadow-free first love of God. From his heart flow streams of living water. He cries out in a loud voice, "Let anyone who is thirsty come to me. Let anyone who believes in me come and drink." That's from John 7:37 and 38. Come to me, all you who labor and are overburdened, and I will give you rest. Shoulder my yoke and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. When I was operating from this place of trauma, if I'm really honest, when people would tell me, just go and rest, I'd want them to shut up. I'm sorry, but it's like, no, don't tell me to rest. I just need to keep doing something because I want to numb this pain. But now I savor the rest. Now I know that I'm yoked to Jesus. And it's just so, there's no burden. His burden is easy. His yoke is easy. His burden is light. And I want to be yoked. I literally have this visual where I can come to him in the morning and say, let me be yoked to you, my master, as your apprentice. So that's who I would be without Jesus, who I am and who I could be as I apprentice with him. My soul has found its rest, and it continues to do so. Jesus said in John 14:6, I am the way and the truth and the life. He is the truth, the way, and he gave me life. This is my story. I've just written a book that's coming out next Feb. It's called Champions of Truth. Go figure. The person who believed in all the lies writes a book called Champions of Truth. Jesus delivers us from the lies of the enemy, the lies we tell ourselves, and he transforms us to be bearers of his truth. I want to be a champion of his truth. What about you? I'm going to end with this old song. I don't know if you have heard this song. It's called, What If Someone Hadn't Told Me About Jesus? What if someone hadn't told me about him? Then my soul would still be unhappy, all alone and still lost in sin. Oh, how sad it could be that to know that the king had riches beyond the grief, but sad as to know would be not to know that one of his heirs was me. That's why I'm glad someone told me about Jesus. I'm so glad someone told me about him. For today, my soul is so happy, all because someone told me of him. Who did I tell today about Jesus? Who did I tell today about him? And who will know the splendor of heaven, all because I told them of him? And who did you tell today about Jesus? Who did you tell today about him? And who will know the splendor of heaven, all because you told them of him, all because I told them of him, all because we told them of him. Thank you.
Thanks, Arti. It's not easy to fit a lifetime into communicating where God has taken you from that 16, 17-year-old girl, pregnant, 8-hour walk, to standing here today. And all of us have a story. All of us have a story, and if we can allow Jesus to become part of our story, anything is possible in our lives. So can we do that first song?
The fast one?
Yeah. We might just finish with that one.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And hang around. We've got a barbecue happening. If you've got to go, that's fine, but just stay around, have something to eat with us. But so fantastic to have you here today.
You know that means you have to stand. There is hope, there is always hope. And there is peace in the storm, in the storm. Don't forget, He is Lord of all. There is a King of glory, there is a God who saves, one who is strong and mighty. Jesus is in His name. Open the gates of heaven, lift up a shout of praise. There is a lion roaring, Jesus the King of glory. So lift your eyes, stand in awe, stand in awe. There is one, only one. There is a King of glory, there is a God who saves, one who is strong and mighty. Freedom is in His name. Open the gates of heaven, lift up the shout of praise. There is a lion roaring, Jesus the King of glory. Nations bow, mountains shake at the sound of just one name. Over all, Jesus reigns, I know. Nations bow, mountains shake at the sound of just one name. Over all, Jesus reigns, I know. There is a King of glory, there is a God who saves, one who is strong and mighty. Freedom is in His name. Open the gates of heaven, lift up a shout of praise. There is a lion roaring, Jesus the King of glory. There is a lion roaring, Jesus the King of glory.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for coming and being part of our first Sunday, Redgum's first Sunday in this building. Thank you very much.